Good to see you there, Jill.
Kia ora. Yeah, good to see you too.
The team told me you were going to be, you're going to make it, so it's all good.
Yes, yep, worked out well.
Good.
Well, we'll get underway because we want to make sure we're not holding people up. So kia ora koutou. It looks like we have a quorum. I'll just get Letitia to confirm that. But
yes, we do have a quorum.
Fantastic. So we'll get underway so that everybody can do their submissions and get on with their day. So kia ora koutou. We'll begin with the opening karakia and then get through the other bits of the meeting. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atākura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Nau mai, haere mai to today's community hearings panel. We'll be hearing about the Mount Victoria trails that have been proposed. I'm just calling to see if there are any apologies for this meeting. Mayor Foster.
Just for early departure, I've got another meeting scheduled at 10.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Paul.
For early departure.
Early departure as well. Great. So now that we've got those.
Councillor Day.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say apologies for just coming on a bit late, but also I've got problems with my video. So I am here. It's just I can't get the video showing.
Okay, thanks for letting us know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we've got those apologies. So do I have a seconder for those apologies? Thank you to Councillor Foon. So now that we have a mover and a seconder, we will vote.
Waiting on a vote from Councillor Young.
Looks like she's trying to make it work. There we go.
Cool, excellent. That has carried unanimously.
Kua mana, so that's carried. I call on members to declare any conflicts of interest. Don't think there will be. And then confirmation of minutes. So I move the motion that the Community Hearings Panel approves the minutes of the Community Hearings Panel meeting held on the 16th of March, having been circulated, they be taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Young. Let's vote.
And that has carried unanimously.
Great, thank you. So there are no items not on the agenda. And we will now move into our hearings. So I'd like to begin by welcoming Tim Jones. Nau mai, haere mai anō. Good to see you today, Tim. So Tim is speaking to us today on behalf of Living Streets Aotearoa. So Tim, you've got 10 minutes, and if there is any time, we might have some questions for you. So over to you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much for the welcome. And yes, I'll present our oral submissions. I think there'll be a little bit of time for questions at the end. So this is our oral submission on the proposed new Mount Victoria mountain bike trail. When it comes to the streets of Wellington, Living Streets Aotearoa supports safe, separated footpaths for pedestrians and safe, separated infrastructure for cyclists. That ensures the needs of both people on foot and people on bikes are met. When it comes to the slopes of Mātauranga Mount Victoria, we think the balance is tipped too far against the needs of pedestrians and the natural environment. That's why we oppose this proposed new mountain bike trail. Our members value the environment of Mātauranga, its regenerating native forests and its returning bird life. And we value the space the existing tracks of Mount Victoria provide for walking, for running, and for standing and looking out over Te Whanganui Atara. We think the proposed new trail is unnecessary. It would open up the one untouched forested section of the eastern side of the Mount Victoria Ridge to the sort of damage official and unofficial mountain bike trails have caused throughout other Mount Victoria and Hataitai sections of the town belt. Because the proposed track would cross lots of walking paths towards its southern end, it would increase the risk that fast-moving mountain bikers pose to slower-moving pedestrians. So in terms of the provisions of the Wellington Town Belt Act, the principles of the Town Belt Act include that the council must recognise and provide for the protection and enhancement of the Wellington Town Belt for future generations, that the town belt should support healthy Indigenous ecosystems, that the town belt should be accessible to all and for all to enjoy, and that it should be available for a wide range of recreational activities. So we're not saying that there shouldn't be mountain bike trails on the slopes of Mount Victoria, but we are saying that there are plenty of them already. And because many mountain bikers choose not to stick to the official trails, but instead carve their own steep downhill trails, they're damaging existing trees, hindering replanting efforts, and worsening the damage that's already occurring from extreme weather events such as strong winds and heavy rainfall, which of course we've seen very recently. In our view, accessible to all means that people with disabilities, people with walking difficulties, and parents with children should all be able to use the routes of Mount Victoria without worrying that they're going to be hit by a fast-moving mountain bike or forced to jump out of the way of one as it races by downhill. I've had that experience as a pedestrian. It's frightening. We do think that walkers, runners, the ecosystem and mountain bikers can coexist within the town belt. But adding more and more new mountain bike trails like this proposed trail is not what coexistence means. We think it's time to take another look at how proposed uses of the Matairangi Mount Victoria section of the town belt are balanced. So what problems do mountain bike trails cause to pedestrians and the environment? Our members have told us that they have put off using the tracks as pedestrians by the risk of encountering fast-moving mountain bikers. Our members have seen how, once an official mountain bike trail is established, other unofficial trails cutting steeply downhill soon follow. Where those trails intersect walking tracks, accidents and near misses can easily happen. What's more, especially on the western side of the ridge, those secondary trails have damaged regenerating bush and disrupted replanting programs. The northern end of the proposed trail cuts through regenerating bush that's undisturbed at present, while the southern end cuts across existing walking tracks and trails. I just want to comment on the Trails Wellington submission. It says, I'm quoting now from their submission, because the trail will be professionally built and hold strong appeal for mountain bikers who ride in this area, we envisage there will be less people riding on the trails on the city side of Matairangi. This reflects that they will gravitate towards this fantastic new trail. However, there is no commitment in the Trails Wellington submission to a reduction in the number of people riding trails on the city side of the ridge, or to a reduction in the number of trails on the city side. And elsewhere in their submission, Trails Wellington states that they are working with Wellington City Council to enhance the trail network on the city side of Matairangi. This suggests to us that the likely outcome of this trail being built would be a further increase in the number of mountain bike users throughout Matairangi, and therefore further risk to walkers and further damage to the environment. So, if the council does approve the new trail, what provisions should apply? Well, we propose the following provisions. Firstly, regarding the designation of the track. Like many existing walking and shared use tracks on the western side of the Matairangi Mount Victoria Ridge, the proposed new trail broadly follows the contour of the ridge for most of its length, descending at 4 to 5 degrees. Therefore, it would not constitute a steep downhill trail, which might be more suitable for bike priority. And in our view, the new trail should be designated as a shared use path. Secondly, intersections. This proposed trail crosses a number of main and secondary walking and shared use tracks. As mountain bikes travel at speed and often in groups, there is a significant risk of mountain bikes crashing into pedestrians at these intersections. This actual and perceived risk of injury discourages some pedestrians, especially older pedestrians and those with disabilities, from using the walking and shared use track network. Therefore, at all such intersections, Wellington City Council should use fencing and other design measures to ensure that MTB users must slow and only cross at one clearly signalled point. Likewise, walkers and runners must be clearly notified of such crossings. Finally, user behaviour and training. While design can help to mitigate the risk of accidents caused by mountain bike users speeding through crossings, mountain bike users also need to modify their behaviour to reduce the risk to pedestrians. Our members' experience of encountering mountain bike users on the western slopes of the ridge is that, while some are careful to slow at intersections and do behave considerately towards pedestrians, others cross at full speed and expect pedestrians to jump out of their way. Therefore, we believe the onus is on the members of Trails Wellington and other mountain bike groups to educate their members on appropriate behaviour when encountering pedestrians, and for the council to be prepared to take enforcement action against mountain bike users who persistently endanger pedestrians. Thanks.
Kia ora, thank you, Tim. Looks like we do have a partai from Councillor Young.
Good morning, Tim. Thank you. You've actually answered some of my questions, but I do have one remaining, which is, can you tell me how many pedestrian-only tracks there are on both sides of Mount Victoria? Roughly?
No, I can't tell you that. It's possible that some other submitters will be able to be. My recollection is that all tracks currently are defined as ones which can be used by both mountain bikers and pedestrians, but that some are designated, in fact, many are designated as bike priority, some are designated as shared use. However, I don't have an answer for that, so I'd be if anybody else can answer that question, that would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Kia ora. Are there any other questions from the panel? Looks like there aren't. Thank you, Tim. You're really clear and concise with what you shared. So thank you for taking the time to come and kōrero with us today. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Kia ora. So now we've got Alan Blake. No mai, Alan, thank you for coming in again to talk to us. Appreciate you taking the time. And so you know how this works. This time you've got 5 minutes, because I think you're just presenting today as an individual. So if there is any time, there might be some questions for you. Over to you.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for hearing my personal submission as a Mount Vic resident and also a person who's got about 20 years working on Mount Victoria to make our bush a better place for everybody to enjoy. So I've spent a lot of time up here. I spend a lot of time up here. And so I've got 3 things I want to say. I think Letitia might have a nice photo to look at instead of me. That's good. Yeah, so I want to talk about, first of all, the policy and plans that manage Mount Vic. I think Tim's already mentioned the Town Belt Act, but one of the ones that's very relevant to this is the Open Spaces Plan, and it says that all tracks will be shared use by walkers and cyclists wherever this is appropriate. Tracks will be open for biking unless otherwise stated. So that clearly says that bikes can go in some places, but only when it's appropriate. And it also says all tracks will have minimal environmental impact. And I would argue that mountain biking is certainly not a minimal environmental impact. It also talks about managing user conflict, and particularly in regard to speed of bikes. And yeah, so and I also want to talk about the Mount Vic Master Plan, which was a 2015 plan. It had a lot of community buy-in. One of the strong messages from that plan was that there were too many tracks on Mount Victoria already, and we should be managing with what we've got. So we've got a lot of policy that supports a shared use track, but what we're seeing increasingly is that we're getting mountain bike only tracks. These are called bike priority, but I'll show you in a minute some of the signage that goes with these that really puts people off walking, and the design, particularly the newly redeveloped bulldoze bits of track, really make it impossible to walk along these places easily. And as a person that has to get into some of these places to remove weeds and do other work in there, it's really gets to be quite difficult and it feels unsafe. What else did I want to? I was trying to be quick here, so I'm not reading all of my submission. So the bit of Mount Vic that they're talking about for putting this track through is actually a really nice bit of regenerating bush. I understand that Forest and Bird planted some of this area in the 1990s, so it's been around for quite a long time. And it's the usual sort of Wellington plants. There's nothing special there, but it's a lovely bit of regenerating bush. It's quite steep compared to the western side. So I think that was really disappointed that this even went out for public consultation, because it doesn't follow the plans and policies in place. And so it's kind of put people on the back foot to have to argue against something that doesn't follow the plans and policies. So I would really like to see the council not proceed with this. And if you do want to think that we should have mountain bike only tracks, which are against your own policies, then I think it's the only fair process is to open it up for public consultation again and review all of these plans and policies. And if you want mountain bike only tracks, we've got mountain bike only parks. We've got 2 parks, especially for mountain bikes. But if you want to have other parts of our park network is for mountain bike only, then it's only fair that the public gets to have a say in this. I don't think very many people know even about this proposal at the moment, so that's probably why there's not very many people here. But so this is one of the policies. You've got electric bikes are not permitted on council reserve trails. So nice sign, mostly seen in the breach. So if we can have a second slide, please. Is that Letitia? You controlling the button? Thank you. So my next question is, what are parks for? Are parks places that you go to get away from your urban environment into a green and peaceful space, to have a little amble around and do what you like? Are parks places that you get away from all the vehicles on the road? Are parks places that families and other people can come and enjoy themselves? Well, I'd argue that currently parks are pretty much for fit and able people, and that we're not seeing a great diversity of people in the parks, and we need to see more. So this is a sign that's on one of the, it's a very new sign on one of the mountain bike only tracks. And so I think that asking yourself what parks are for is really important. Can we have the next slide, please, Letitia? And then my question is, who are parks for? And so I think that we're not seeing enough people in our parks, even though Mount Vic is one of the busiest parks in the whole Wellington network. There's always people up there. And I would say, so we've got somebody on our group who counts these things, who is over 90% of people are on foot, well over 90%. But we don't see a lot of kids up there on their own. We don't see very many disabled people at all up here with obvious disabilities, that is. You don't see very many family groups. So I think that the focus about who parks are for should be more on a wider diversity of people up here. But who are mountain bikes for? It's a mostly male-dominated sport, and I think it's really important that we start to look at a better analysis of some of these who are using parks and who benefits from them. So if we're going to, I've just going to finish this.
We're going to need to stop now.
I've got a couple of things that I just really want to say. If you want more mountain biking, then you need to review the policies. You need to make it safe and pleasant. And if we're going to have some bike-only tracks, which we do, we need walk-only tracks. We don't have any at the moment. And we need to prioritise more activity for girls and women, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. So there is unfortunately not any time for questions, but thank you for taking the time to come and share with us today. Now I'd like to welcome Chris Horn. Haere mai, Chris. Can I see you there? So Chris, you've got 5 minutes, and yeah, if there's any time for questions, we can do that within the 5 minutes. So over to you. Sorry, Chris, we're hearing you. I think this is what happened the other time we were listening to you. It's your speaker, when you speak, it comes through really fast. I wonder. Yeah, no, it's still not working quite right. I wonder, Chris, if you can maybe try logging out and in again. And while you do that, I've got submission from someone else that I could read while you're doing that. Thank you. I wonder, Letitia, is someone able to give Chris a call and just talk with him and see if he needs any help with doing that? Because this did happen last time.
Yeah.
He joined us through Zoom.
Yeah, we'll get one of our team to give them a call.
That would be great. Thank you. So I have got a submission to read on behalf of Gareth Deluxe, who unfortunately couldn't join us today. So he's asked if I will read out his submission. I've also had the same from Dan Webster, who also couldn't attend. So I'm just going to read his at the end as well. So I'll read Gareth's now. And then obviously I won't answer any questions because I don't know what the answers would be. But then we will see, hopefully Chris might be back in by then and we can hear his submission. So this is from Gareth. The following submission addresses concerns of myself and fellow residents near the proposed entrance to the new track. The main concerns of myself and the people living near the entrance are disturbance coming from noise associated with the use of the track and surrounding area, physical disturbance to the natural bush of the area, visual disruption from the outlook of homes, visual and noise disturbance from night riding, increased traffic and reduced parking. The proposed track will be the longest bike priority track on Mount Victoria. Given Mount Victoria's central location and the nature of the track, it will likely be Wellington's most accessible and popular mountain bike track. There will be a range of riders utilising the track, including school groups, bike tour groups, bike shuttle operators, tourists, and so on. Trails Wellington described the proposed trail as the central critical project of their vision for Wellington to be a world-class mountain biking destination. They described the project as a jewel in the crown of the mountain biking area that is Mount Victoria Mātauranga. With the likelihood of this being the most popular track in Wellington, if not the lower North Island, we feel it is important to ensure that disruption to the local residents is kept to a minimum. Whilst we acknowledge the desire for a new mountain bike track from the Trails Wellington group, we feel the current proposed entrance is unsuitable. There is a concern from the residents that the entry point to the track is too close to residential housing and that the start point to the track will be a busy congregation area for meeting and preparing to ride the track. The residents feel that there will be a heightened disruption associated with the congregation area and the entrance of the track. We feel it is important that any disruption caused by the creation and use of the track has a minimised effect on both ecology and the peaceful natural residential setting of the area. We feel that moving the track and entrance further south and closer to the hospital jumps area will cause less of a disturbance to the natural character of the area and will reduce disturbance to the residents. Moving the entrance south toward the hospital jumps area is more suitable as it is not close to any residential housing and there is significantly more car parking available. Moving the track further south will also significantly reduce any noise disruption associated with the track as the topography of the valley quickly widens south of the proposed entrance, whereas the housing near the proposed entrance is situated in a tight horseshoe-shaped valley. This shape effectively acts like a natural amphitheatre. Moving the track's entrance closer to the hospital jumps will also reduce the visual impact to residents' homes closest to the track as the vertical distance between the housing on Hapua Street and the track dramatically increases south of the proposed entrance and the gradient of the hill provides natural bush cover to the site of the track. That might be side, whereas the current proposed track's entrance location overlooks several homes. There are multiple points of entry between the proposed entrance and the hospital jump area, which is not visible from housing. Moving the entrance of the track south will move the congregation point to the hospital jumps area, which will reduce the possibility of disturbance from both casual users and commercial operators such as Wellington Mountain Bike Track Ventures, who operate mountain bike shuttle services on Mount Victoria. Moving the entrance south would also alleviate any overspill of parking into the residential area. Parking for residents near the proposed track entrance on Alexandra Road has recently been significantly reduced by Wellington City Council, and residents are now struggling with parking, and residential only parking may be required moving forward. Moving the track's location further south will also ensure the preservation of the upper forest, which is mostly Indigenous trees, shrubs and ferns mixed with exotic conifers. In response to the media article published in the Dominion Post in the Dominion newspaper and staff website on March 21st, a Trail Wellington affiliate stated concerns that the proposed new track would increase noise and light pollution in the area were unfounded. Very few people, if any, would want to use a downhill track in the dark, and bikes were near silent, unlike cars which already shared the hill. The residents agree that whilst it is clear that well-maintained bikes are quiet, are quiet. The concern is more of disturbance based on excited and busy human activity associated on and around the proposed track. The residents also have the counter opinion that very few people, if any, would want to use a downhill track in the dark. The residents feel this view is misguided, as night riding is in fact popular. There are many riders who do night riding on Mount Vic trails. There are even commercial operators such as Wellington Mountain Bike Adventures who specialise in downhill night rides in Wellington, including Mount Victoria tracks. A downhill and intermediate flow trail is the ideal track for night riding, as the lights used for riding are very powerful and light the trail. For example, the brightness of light measured in lumens, the average car headlight lumen rating is between 2,000 and 4,000 lumens, and whilst a minimum of 1,500 lumens is recommended for mountain bike night riding, however, appropriate mountain bike lights range from 1,500 to 8,000 lumen. We feel that our request to have the entrance moved south is fair and reasonable, as a combination of the popularity of the track and its proposed location will cause disruption to the residents, whilst the reduction of the track's length would have a minimal impact on the total length and quality of enjoyment obtained from the track, whilst preserving the ecology and ensuring the retention of character of this peaceful natural residential setting. Kind regards, Ngā mihi, Gareth. So that's Gareth's one. Have we got Chris back online? Chris, we'll have another try if you want to come off mute.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Fantastic. Thank you. So over to you. You've got 5 minutes. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Please see the Town Belt Act, the principles 1B, 1.2, and then 1.3. The proposal is inconsistent with the Town Belt Act. Please note my experience on the Town Belt, particularly the city side in 1996, when I was a contractor to council with a well-known mountain biker, and our job was to assess which tracks could be mixed use. And we decided on two. One was the Hataitai to Te Aro walkway, and plus one other. Now look what we've got. The place, the west side of the Town Belt is wrecked by illegal tracks, unsanctioned by council, done by guerrilla track builders with plunges and off walkways, very steep plunges, and then jumps built, and of course lots and lots of native understory destroyed. We have this problem with guerrilla track builders. They often start inside a bush area and work their way to the proposed entrance and exit. And then when they finish the inside part of their new route, they'll open at both ends. I've seen this myself in another place in the city. I suggest that you get your ecologists to go and check on the east side by walking down off Alexandra Road, rather steeply, down through the Town Belt, bush there, and just to see if there's any illegal track work already been done there. In an effort to preempt the decision which they think will be favourable, or they hope will be favourable from this hearings panel. Guerrilla track builders are simply not to be trusted. You cannot allow further destruction, in my opinion, of the native vegetation and the natural landforms on Matairangi, Mount Victoria. So I urge you all to decline this application for consent. It would lead to further unacceptable loss of natural values, be they native plant communities, places for birds to forage and nest, and of the natural landforms. Thank you.
Kia ora, Chris. So Councillor Young has a question for you.
So Chris, thank you. So I'm just a little confused here because, of course, what we're talking about is a legal mountain bike, a legal mountain bike trail going through, because I mean, I don't think anyone, apart from the ones who do it, supports the guerrilla mountain bike trails. And surely the fact that this would be a properly constructed one by an organisation, a group of people who have proved their dedication to many of the values that you espouse, would offer an alternative so people wouldn't have to build guerrillas. I mean, I know there are always going to be guerrilla tracks. They are, none of us support them, but this is an organisation which is trying to build a track that will be sufficiently attractive that those who build the guerrilla tracks will think, well, why don't we go on the decent trail? There's a question in there. There's a question in there because the question is, surely a properly constructed mountain bike trail is the antithesis of the guerrilla trails, which are not part of what we're discussing today.
A track, no matter how beautifully built, entails the clearance of regenerating native vegetation and thus habitat for fauna and flora, and destruction of the natural landform. So it, in my opinion, would be totally inappropriate to allow further damage to our treasured native ecosystem on Matairangi.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We've only got not very long left. Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora, Chris. Thank you for your submission. My question is, what if we mitigated the impacts by replanting, say, double the amount of vegetation cleared by creating this track? What would happen if we worked really hard on the area and did some purposeful planting and it increased the amount of net plants? How do you feel about that?
Thanks, Councillor O'Neill. I oppose it because planting is simply gardening. It is inappropriate ecologically. It's guesswork. It is a feel-good act that some of these people take. It is totally inappropriate. Let nature do the revegetation in its own terms and in its own time.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for taking the time to come and share with us today. Hope you have a good afternoon.
Thank you all.
Chair, I'm sorry, I've got to go to this other meeting now. I'll be back if I can.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Minister. Thank you. So now I'd like to welcome Anthony Edmonds. No mai haere mai, Anthony. So you've got 5 minutes, and if there is any time for questions, we'll do that in that time. So over to you.
Councillor Day, I think we're going to get the Trails Wellington team just to do their presentation first before I did my personal one.
Okay, so you want to do, we'll switch it around then.
Yep.
So we'll
Yeah,
do
that's
Trails
the way.
Wellington first. Okay,
Sweet.
So
Okay.
in that case, I will introduce, we've got Rod Drury, Izzy Alleyway and Tom Keppelman here from Trails Wellington. So I see that you're all here, and what I'll do is I'll hand over to you. So you've got 10 minutes, and if you want to lead the way, if there's any time within that 10 minutes, we'll have some questions, and I think there probably will be some questions. So if you could leave a bit of time, that would be good. So over to the three of you. Thank you.
You're on mute, Tom.
Awesome, thanks for that. Kia ora koutou, ko Thomas, tōku ingoa, ko Kappelman, tōku ingoa whānau. So I'm the operations manager of Trails Wellington. I'm joined by Izzy Alloway from Word and Rod Drury. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to go through some key points before handing over to the others. Why are we proposing the track and who will it benefit? The proposed flow trail fills a gap in Wellington, particularly the Matairangi Trail network, which currently doesn't cater for beginners. We've engaged with Word, our local kids mountain bike group, and Revolve, the local women's riding club. Both organisations love the proposal and agree it would be a real game changer for their programme. On top of that, the trail is going to serve as a great commuting route for the eastern suburbs, ease congestion on the city side trails, and open up huge areas of inaccessible bush to environmental groups for trapping and planting. What steps are we taking to reduce any potential trail user conflict? We're working with Wellington City Council and other stakeholders to develop and finalise the trail design, which looks to mitigate and alleviate these concerns. Our latest design has taken submission feedback on board. We've removed all trail crossings from the original design, opting for safe, well-managed merging of existing trails. On top of that, we've decided to finish the trail at the skills area opposed to the original plan, which took you down to Ruahine Street. We're also working with Wellington City Council on the city side of Matarangi to improve the management of existing trails, which will result in all trail users feeling safe in this area. How are we taking the environment into consideration in the design process? Wellington City Council are conducting multiple ecological assessments of the proposed route, and we're working with an independent ecologist to make sure we're making the best decisions for the environment. We see this trail as a huge opportunity to increase the ecological value in the area through targeted weed work, restoration, and trapping. We've already changed the alignment in the lower half after ecological consultation, increasing the opportunity for restoration work. We firmly believe that offering people quality recreation opportunities in nature will result in a huge increase in kaitiakitanga from a broader slice of our community. There's evidence of this both at Makara Peak and Waimapihi, where mountain bikers have planted tens of thousands of native trees and really helped transform the ecological value of both parks. There are already plenty of bike tracks. It's good to understand that not all trail users are able to drive to trail networks like Makara Peak, especially our Tamariki. It's important for the health and well-being of Wellington residents that they have the opportunity to connect with the environment in easy, meaningful ways. Thanks for your time. I hope that the overwhelming response of around 90% in favour in submissions leads to Wellington gaining a brilliant asset for both its people and the natural environment. I'm just going to hand over to Izzy.
All right, kia ora. I'm just going to, oh, sorry, I can't share my slides. So I am just going to read you what I've got without some slides. Kia ora katoa, ko Izzy tako ingoa. I am part of the Trails Wellington board representing youth and women, and I am also a part of the word management team. While I do present women on our board, I'm here to speak to you for the youth today. And we'll leave the experience of our women up to our team, our friends at Revolve, who are going to speak a bit later. Word is a non-for-profit organisation that runs term and holiday programs throughout the Wellington region. In the past term alone, we've had 254 kids ride at Matarangi at some point during the term. I do have a bunch of cute photos to show you, but I won't show you those today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Matarangi means to, what pyramid scheme would mean to us to have it built. As an instructor, I often take 7 to 9-year-old groups on Matarangi, and there is really only 2 to 3 short trail options to take beginners on, which get boring pretty quickly. Trails such as hippies, which are the next step, are a pretty big step up with no progression to get there. Sessioning and practicing parts of these trails can be really scary when you have much faster riders coming down after you. It would be awesome to have a trail that fills the gap between the easiest trails and hippies and offers progression that means these kids are ready to ride hippies when they do ride it. So I've got some pictures here that you can't see, but these, but we do a lot of trail maintenance during the winter on Matarangi with our teenage programs. This really helps for the kids to feel like they can give something back to the environment and to their community around them. It also helps to keep these trails and the environment around it maintained and to stop further destruction of the environment.
Apologies, Izzy. You should be able to share your slides now if you'd like to try.
Perfect. That'd be awesome. There we go. Thank you. All right. So here's the pictures of the kids trailblading, doing some awesome stuff. This one here, this is pictures of some of our 50 10 to 12-year-old girls. This has been something that we've worked really, really hard to grow as our female and youth population of mountain bikers in Wellington. We think it's a really beneficial thing. This is them going for their first run down the new rebuild of Water Tower, which is a trail that's recently been refurbished by Trails Wellington, which has brought it back into grade 3 and has helped to bridge some of those gaps in the beginner riding. I'm just going to finish with, we're so grateful for the opportunity to talk to you all about this. And at the end of the day, what our goal is to collaborate with all groups involved to create some amazing trails that benefit everyone. Thank you. Pass it over to Rod.
Hey there, everybody. I feel like I've been here before. Nice to see you all. I mean, I think the process that we've seen, you know, we talked about Trails Wellington, what we're doing about a year ago. and just seeing the amazing progress and all of the happy faces around Wellington. It's just so exciting seeing what we're doing. Chris, if you want to grab a coffee, I'd love to do that. I'm right at drury.net.nz. We've done a lot of trail work in Queenstown and in Hawke's Bay. All of the concerns you have, we've heard before, and I think we've handled those very well. So I am concerned that you're upset about this, because all we've seen is goodness. So I'd love to take the time over a coffee to explain all of the benefits of what we're doing and to let you know that we hear those concerns. And I think the team are doing a fantastic job. It's absolutely world class, the approach that they've taken. Just the only other thing I really wanted to say, separate from what you've seen today, is I'm really concerned about Wellington at the moment. COVID has knocked us around. The centre city is quite, it's heartbreaking to see how quiet it is. And, I think one of our natural advantages, as we've always said, is we have access to the bush and the environment from lunchtime after work, which is unique to every other city. And the ability for us to have world-class mountain bike tracks and walking tracks and all those things where you can have an active lifestyle while you're working is one of the real competitive advantages that we have. So, I mean, building trails, what we've seen, we've put the money in place. There's still this massive process to get things done. We're working really hard on it. I would say we should be 10xing what we're doing with trails in this really mature way of making sure we're getting the environment right, we're separating walkers, but we've got to make Wellington fun and exciting and a place where people want to live and work. And we've got to get people back to the CBD. And this is a tangible, easy way that we can do it. And the rest of the world, a lot of places have worked it out. Towns are building, spending millions and millions of dollars in trail. We're just scratching the surface on a few obvious things to do. I'd love to spend more. I'd love to go faster. And I'm so proud of the work the Trails Trust have done to balance the needs of everybody. But man, we should be doing more, because we've got to do some things to make our city attractive for people to come back to. Thank you.
Kia ora. So we do have some time for questions if you all finished your part of the submission. So we'll go to Councillor Foon first.
Kia ora tātou, and thank you for the submission. And Rod, good to see you here. It's my first time to see you on council, so thank you. My question is for Tom. Just listening to the concerns of some of the submissions this morning, while we understand the kaitiaki approach, and thank you for the mahi you are doing there, but what else are you doing to advocate riders, to educate riders and ensure that there is courtesy and that they have a responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always a couple of bad eggs in every community, and we don't condone any of the guerrilla work or any of that stuff that goes on. We've got amazing groups like Word, which are instilling these values in our next generation. So this is a short-term problem. Like long-term, we're sorted. Yeah, we obviously don't condone any of that, and we are doing everything we can to educate people around trail maintenance, planting, weeding, trapping, and the importance of our environment, and how lucky we are to be able to experience it in the centre of Wellington.
Thank you. I've got a partai that's kind of a little bit similar, but more around the use of the trails and just what the biking community is doing to sort of, I guess, promote responsible and courteous use of the trails. Because obviously for those of us who do enjoy using the trails, it is hard when we, there are a few people that do kind of let us down. So what's happening amongst the biking community to support, responsible use?
So at Trails Wellington, we're working with the council currently to manage the city side of the trails, and we're putting a lot of time and effort and money into managing all crossings and merges and all of that. So look, we don't like trail conflict either, and we don't really want to be riding on walking tracks. So I think that's what we're doing, and the amazing volunteer groups, the Matarangi Trail Builders, they're just starting, so they've got like 30 to 40 people each weekend doing trail maintenance and weeding and planting as well, so that's only going to grow as well.
I wonder if Izzy has anything to share too, because obviously you're educating young people on using the tracks and how what you do to encourage kind of courteous track use.
Yeah, so what we find with our kids is they are really keen to look after and build these trails. And when we do give them the opportunity to do that, they care about the trails so much more. When they understand and when they have been educated on all of the trees and all of the different wildlife that we see in the park, they get so excited about it. And it's something that we hope that through generational, and these kids take this stuff home to their parents. Most mountain biking kids have parents that ride. So when they take that home, they go riding with their parents and they tell them about the kaka they've seen in the on Matarangi, or the kiriru that they see around the place as well. That feeds back into our community, and it helps to continue that passion. And how are you gonna, like, these kids are so excited about it, how are you gonna ignore what they've got to say, kind of thing?
And I suppose building on that, like, it's amazing seeing the word groups whenever they're stopped on a trail, their bikes are on the side of the trail, they're all stood out of the way. Whenever they're at intersections, they're making sure they're not blocking other trail users and hampering their experience. Like, the future is certainly bright.
It's been great seeing how the social media, Trails Wellington social media, is really starting to take off. And there's a good mix of exciting content, but also this educational content. And this is another thing. And I think what I'm taking out of this is we just need to really ram home through those channels the damage that illegal trail building does. It just doesn't help anybody in this. So again, we've got really good access to get that message out.
Kia ora. Thank you very much to the three of you, tēnā koutou. I really appreciate you taking the time and the mahi that you're doing, but also taking the time to share your experiences with us today and your dreams for what could be in Wellington. Kia ora. Now welcome Anthony, no mai haere mai, Anthony. So you've got 5 minutes to say everything you want to say. So I'll hand over to you. Kia ora.
Okay, so thanks. In terms of my presentation today, I'm also got Laura Stewart with me, so it's great to introduce Laura to you. Laura's the co-president of Revolve, so that's women riding, but also has got a unique perspective in terms of the trails because she's one of Wellington's disabled mountain bikers, so brings a really interesting perspective to the discussion today. It's great to see the refinements being made that Tom talked about to take out all the trail intersections and things, removing the sort of conflict that living streets were worried about. So that issue's been dealt with. So this is a really epic trail initiative in its current form. What I really want to highlight to you is that it also has been built within the restrictions that you're providing as a council to actually make it accessible to people like Laura. Would take a mind shift from you as a council to make that possible, and also you putting your hand in your pocket to actually contribute to a project like this, because the width of the trail and things would have a higher cost associated with it. So Laura, I'll just hand to you.
Sure, thanks. Thanks very much, Anthony. As Anthony said, my name is Laura and I am the co-chair of Revolve. If you haven't heard of Revolve, and you should have, hopefully, Revolve is Wellington's women's bike club, and we have members on the road cycling community and mountain bikers. The purpose of Revolve is to get women into riding, as many women as possible, getting them out exercising, making connections and building their networks, but most importantly, improving their confidence and well-being, because when you're on a bike, you just forget about the rest of the world and you feel amazing. We lead weekly rides, we're a volunteer group, and we have a fabulous group of volunteers who lead rides, both road rides and mountain biking, and we also hold women's events as well. But what we've noticed is there tends to be a trend of women being reluctant to come on rides, and they'll sit on our mailing list because we send out the weekly newsletter, and for weeks or months or even years, and they'll be too nervous to come out and ride with us. And primarily the reason is because the beginner trails in Wellington actually require you to have already have an ability to ride confidently and well. And there's a really big difference between riding, for example, on a paved walkway or a river trail and a narrow Wellington mountain bike dirt trail. And the biggest factor of this is the width of the trails, as it affects people's confidence. So there's a physical and safety thing and a mental aspect to this, particularly because people are nervous about falling off. And when you put a trail next to the side of a cliff, which mountain bike trails generally always are, it makes it really challenging for a lot of people. So back in the day when I used to lead bike rides, I would take women out who would have mental blocks about riding on Wellington's trails, for example, at Makara Peak, which is really frustrating for them, and there would be tears because they knew that they should be able to ride in a straight line, but the fact that the trail was so nervous just meant that they couldn't bring themselves to cross that line. And of course, it's also a safety factor. If there's more room on the trail, then there's more room for error, which is important when you're starting out riding because you're inevitably or likely to fall off your bike. And the distance and the impact is much less if you just fall off your bike onto the trail rather than falling onto the off the trail and over a cliff. And I can say from experience that it has a huge difference. So having wide enough trails would enable Revolve to be able to run more safer beginner rides and reach out to those women who would love to go riding but don't actually have the confidence to get out there. And as Anthony said, I've also come to speak on a more personal note because I am part of the disabled community, and I used to ride almost every day in Rotorua. I previously lived in Wellington and I moved specifically to Rotorua because it was a great place to ride until I crashed my mountain bike. Then I moved back to Wellington because I decided that the city lifestyle in Wellington was going to be better for the new stage in my life. But I had to sacrifice mountain biking to move back to Wellington because there's actually no trails which are wide enough for accessible e-bikes. And it's also a huge investment to buy an accessible e-bike, which I could only ride outside of Wellington when I'm on holiday as well. So that would mean that if I wanted to take up mountain biking, which was my life for a good decade and was part of my identity, it would mean that I'd have to move back to Rotorua or move to Queenstown, where there is a huge community of accessible riders out there. And I've come across a lot of people in the disabled community who would love to be able to get out on a bike in Wellington and ride the trails, but there's just not the current infrastructure there. So if you build the trails, if you think about buildings and design generally, if you build universally, then more people will be able to use the trails.
Probably a key point to that around it, Laura, is that in terms of this trail is a wider trail. It's a flow trail. It's more of a modern design trail, so it goes a big step towards that. But as I've said, we are constrained by the council's own constraints to making it wide enough for someone like Laura to actually ride down on a disabled bike. And certainly in a personal sense, I would be hugely, excited to see Wellington Council actually embrace and provide for people like Laura, because the mountain biking community has got a big disabled riding community inside it, globally and growing inside NZ. And I think as a city, we need to think about this, and often the concerns we've had around environmental impacts, etc., are the very things that are going to restrict people like from Laura being able to ride in this area, as well as kids and women, as she said, just on those general rides. So I certainly would encourage the council to approve the project as it is, but to be brave and actually think about people like Laura in terms of the future design and build of a track like this.
Thank you both of you. I have actually allowed a little bit more time because obviously Laura is representing an organisation as well. So we do have a couple of questions which I think would be really good to ask. So over to Councillor O'Neill.
Hello, Laura and Anthony. I'm involved with Different Spokes Wellington, which is getting people petty ready just for the road for our rainbow community. And I was really interested in your points, Laura, about what we can do to make tracks more accessible. So, in your opinion, what are the kind of things that you're looking for when you're planning a ride with people from your community, whether that's women or the disabled community? Is it the grade of the paths? What else are we looking for?
I guess I'd firstly say that we can't plan rides for the disabled community because there's no trails for us to actually go on other than the paved Hutt River Trail, which in all honesty is quite pleasant, but that's not mountain biking at all. When we're trying to find beginner trails, it is for women, it is the gradient. But primarily it's the width of the trails and trying to have something that is not covered in rocks and roots. That there's enough room that women can safely make some errors and it not result in a huge disaster for them.
Sorry, do you have an example of a trail or a part of a track in Wellington that we can look to for a good example?
Not in Wellington. I don't know. If you imagine, for example, in Miramar, if Jailbreak was of a gradient, a lesser gradient, then it would be a perfect trail. And I understand that has actually been designed for people on wheelchairs, but it is unfortunately at a gradient that is so steep that it's not considered a beginner's trail at all, because you'll be on your brakes the whole way down there.
The best example I've seen is McNeely Gnarly in Queenstown, which is a nice wide design proper jump trail, and it's had all of those factors built in, so anybody can ride it, and lots of beginners go to learn to do burns in their first jumps. Every jump can roll, yet a pro can just send it and do massive air. So it is possible to build exciting, accessible tracks that people can learn from. So we are seeing examples around New Zealand of the perfect trail. And we've always said, wouldn't it be great if Wellington had our version of McNeely Gnarly?
Which is this trail being considered today, noting that one thing that will restrict it slightly is that we are being told to build it within a certain width, which is a requirement of the council and the sort of build, because they're saying, oh, well, environmental concerns, etc., around width. So I forget, Tom, the exact width here we're building to. Was it 1.5?
Yeah, the 1.5
meters?
is the maximum width currently that we can build.
Yeah, and that's my point back to the council is if you allowed us to build it slightly wider, it would appeal to a wider range of people again, and also introduce opportunities like Laura being able to ride it as a disabled rider.
Thank you. We really have come to the end of the time. Councillor Foon, are you able to ask it really quickly? I know that this is a really valuable opportunity.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair. We're having the response at the conflict between, the aggressive behaviour, particularly in masculine groups. So I guess I'm asking, is there any evidence that when there is more diversity of riders, for example, women, children, those with different abilities, does that help moderate the overall behaviour? Is there any way you can point to examples with that?
Yeah, I can absolutely point to that. So what's been amazing is the female riders in Queenstown, and it's become part of the value proposition. So there's the Dirt Town Queens. We've got a women's enduro coming up over the next week or so. But you go to McNeely Gnarly in the Wynyard Bike Park, which after we built the Wynyard Bike Park, we went and spent, we planted 1,000 trees. Not because anyone asked us to do it, it's because it was the right thing to do. But the number of females there there'd be more females than males there most nights of the week. And it just absolutely just evens the temperature of everything. And that's led to actually a bunch of athletes now being sponsored and being sent overseas. So the women's free ride movement in New Zealand is probably stronger than anywhere else in the world because we've seen they're building these inclusive, welcoming environments.
Kia ora,
Thank
Rod.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just, oh, sorry, no.
No, you go. Just
I was just going to add one more thing to that. I teach the teenage girls program for Word, and we have in the past separated our groups just to make a different environment for women, to have for the girls to be able to ride with the girls and not have that male influence. But now we are starting to integrate that more. And my experience growing up as well was definitely having a more integrated between the boys and the girls riding, and it makes such a big difference. Seeing those different perspectives from female riders does make a big influence on them. Like, these are teenage boys that arguably have got this young masculinity issue, and being around the girls does make a massive influence on them. Having more girls, and we have 21, we have 26 female teenage girl riders now compared to our 50 teenage boys, and we are making a massive difference with that. And it's so visible to see how much of an influence it has on those boys, being around those girls.
Thank you. We are going to wrap that up now because obviously we've used plenty of time. But thank you so much to all of you. So kia ora, Laura and Anthony, for your submission just now. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and share with us. Hope you have a good rest of the day. So now we're going to go.
Thank you.
Oh, kia ora. Now we're going to go on to Jill Ford. No mai haere mai, Jill. So you know how this works. You've got 5 minutes, and hopefully there might be some time for some questions. But over to you.
Kia ora koutou. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, cool. All right, Mount Vic Matarangi is close to the CBD, and it's also in the eastern and southern suburbs. And it's a really important part of our town belt. And having travelled extensively, I can say our town belt is totally unique in the world. And I've been to many different places. I'm a 60-year-old plus female, and I have walked, bike, and I used to run around Mount Victoria for over 30 years. And I can honestly say in all that time, I've had more altercations with dogs than I ever have with mountain bikers, of which in that 30 years, I've had 2 incidences, and they were really minor. I find all the mountain bikers to be incredibly courteous. They stop for pedestrians. And all I can say is, whether you're on the road or on the tracks, it's the people, not what they're riding or driving. Mountain biking, as you've probably discovered, is growing, and many people like myself really enjoy it just as a fun way to be in the outdoors and get exercise. But the current tracks in Mount Vic and a lot of the rest of Wellington are really narrow, winding, technical. And in Mount Vic Matarangi, there are very few, if any, beginner or easier mountain bike tracks. In fact, the 2 main ones I had built as from funds raised with Wild Wellington events that I ran. I'm up there at least 2 to 3 times a week, walking or biking. And I rarely see any female mountain bikers, but lots of males. And I know from talking to other females that many are actually scared to ride there, because Laura's already explained. Yet given the opportunity, females do participate in large numbers. I've recently been in Wanaka and Clyde. In Wanaka, there's the Glendew trails. They are really wide, smooth, rolling, and not terribly technical, most of them. And there were loads of families and females up there, far more than I would see pretty much anywhere in Wellington. I also rode the new Dunstan Trail. This opened last year. And again, it's a wide, smooth, rolling trail. Yeah, there's hills. And they were anticipating 10,000 people. In that time, they've had 60,000 visitors to ride those trails. And when I rode them 2 weeks ago, I would say 50% of the people were women, and a lot of what I would describe as recreational riders. The needs of women and girls in Wellington are not given equal consideration when it comes to sport and rec facilities generally. The more male-dominated activities get far more funding per head of participation. Berhampore Golf Course is a classic. Rugby and cricket fields, skateboard parks. Yet women do want to exercise, and we don't all play netball. We want to get in the outdoors, and we want our needs to be given equal consideration to all the blokes. These trails that are proposed Yes, they need to be wider, but even as they are proposed, they will give the opportunity to enable and encourage more women to just simply benefit from this great natural resource we've got. And we're 51% of the population. Finally, walking, on the subject of trails generally, walking is the #1 recreational activity of Kiwis, and it's participated more by women than males. Yet our trail network, though incredibly extensive, is grossly underfunded, and a lot of it is very poor condition in many places, making it potentially dangerous or at least uncomfortable to even walk. So I'm arguing that from an equity perspective, and to enable more of our people to benefit from what we have in Wellington that's so awesome, I encourage you councillors to not only support this trail, but as a side, to increase the funding for our tracks, because currently an awful lot of the maintenance is left to volunteers. And lastly, if any of you would like to come with me for a walk around some of the tracks, please contact me and I'll do a special walk for you guys. There you go. Any questions?
What a lovely offer, Jill. Are there any Pātai councillors? I think you've been really clear, Jill, and thank you very much for sharing your experiences of the local area too. Really appreciate that. So thank you. We will move on now. So Susie Hume has actually sent her apologies as well. She can't attend, but she has sent a statement for me to read. So I've got 2 statements to read, one after the other, and then we'll be finished. So thank you, everybody. So I've got kia ora koutou, ko Susie toku ingoa. I'm a resident within the pedestrian-only access of Upper Hapua Street, and am choosing to make a submission at this community hearing because I feel strongly that the home environment of those of us in this Upper Hapua Street will be affected by the proposed mountain bike track. The Trails Wellington spokesperson has said that this proposed new level 3 track will be popular. I agree that it will be popular, and this popularity means a changed environment for the residents close to the track. We have chosen to live in such an environment for its proximity to nature, with the nature experience, and for the peacefulness of the environment. Bryn Dickerson has said on an interview with Stuff that claims that the track will bring noise pollution are unfounded, and he says that bikes are near silent. The reality is that the riders will bring noise to this pocket of bush. There is a natural amphitheatre that will amplify the associated noises and conversation. On busy days of mountain biking, there will be wait times with increased noise to the area. This will change the usual peaceful environment in which we live, and therefore affect a major aspect of what we value about our homes. I see the value in recreation for the people of Wellington, and have seen the increased popularity for mountain bikers in the new tracks that have been developed. Relatively close to us is the hospital jumps, and this has proven to be very popular, with the added value that it is not close to any residents. This would be a good place to start the Eastern Mātauranga bike track, with its close proximity to the jumps track and with parking space here. This starting space is not so close to residential housing, with a more substantial buffer of bush between the houses and the proposed bike track, which will reduce visual and sound impacts. In summary, this proposed track with the current start location will impact the local residents, and with a short move of the starting point, this will significantly reduce the impact and yet still provide a recreation opportunity for mountain bikers. Ngā mihi nui, Susie. So that's Susie's submission, and then I've got one here from Dan Webster. Wellington's trail network, particularly Mātauranga, is in need of a flagship all-ages trail that can provide young and old with gateway into mountain biking, the outdoors and conservation. It will provide immense social, cultural, environmental and economic benefits for Wellington. Thanks, Daniel. So those are our submissions for today. So I will now ask for Letitia Lowry to introduce the report.
Kia ora. We have heard the submissions, the recommendations for this report are just to receive the information and to thank the submitters for submitting today.
Thank you, and I'm happy to move that motion, and to thank the submitters for taking the time to come and share with us, and for the epic work that's going on out in the community to try and make Wellington a great place for everybody. And I think, Councillor Young, are you going to second? Is that why your hand's up? Would you like to speak? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm trying to find a map of the proposed trail. I can't find it anywhere. I think it would just be helpful for us to have it in front of mind.
Okay, so maybe Letitia, if you could see if the staff can send through a map to the panel. Sorry.
Letitia, can you just check? I'll get Tom to check with them that it's the latest trail, because all of the concerns have been sort of addressed through moving the trail and changing trail intersections. For example, it's now 75 metres away from those houses that people were talking about.
Okay, so we'll make sure.
If you want me to.
Okay, okay, well that would be good. Thing is, we've had a conversation about that now. So Letitia, if you could follow that up, that would be good.
Yeah, can do.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on accepting the hearings today? No? Okay, so we'll now put that's been moved and seconded. We'll put that to the vote.
Apologies, who seconded that one?
Councillor Young.
And that has carried unanimously.
Thank you. And so again, I'd like to thank the submitters and councillors who have sat on the panel today. Obviously, this will be coming to committee not too far away. And I will now close with the closing karakia. Me karakia tātou. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapu nui. Kia wātia, kia mama, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairua, I te ara takatū. Koia rā e rongo, whakairia ake ki runga. Kia wātia, ai rā, kua wātia. Kia ora. Thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, submitters.
Thank you.